There is a subtle, transformative moment when something inside you simply stops chasing. It's not giving up, it's transcendence. When your energy is no longer focused on a frantic pursuit, something changes in the vibration you emit, and the world responds. What once seemed unreachable begins to draw near in silence. Relationships, opportunities, answers, they all start to orbit you, not because you force them, but because you align. This shift in energetic posture is not merely a spiritual or emotional phenomenon. It is, above all, a profound psychological process. Carl Jung helps us understand why, when we cease the chase, we finally become magnetic. This script reveals the key to that powerful paradox: how stopping the pursuit is not stepping away, but attracting with presence and authenticity. If you believe it's time to stop chasing and start attracting, comment below. I vibrate at the frequency of abundance. According to Jung, the human psyche is made up of conscious and unconscious elements which, when left unintegrated, generate inner conflicts that project themselves into the outer world. When we speak of stopping the chase and allowing life to flow toward us, we are, in fact, describing a stage of the individuation process. Jung defined individuation as the journey to become who we truly are in essence, a journey only possible when we confront and integrate the contents of the shadow, those parts of ourselves that have been repressed, denied, or judged. The energy of the pursuer is often driven by unconscious projections. We seek the love we haven't given ourselves, crave the recognition our inner child never received. This exhausting quest, unconsciously, reveals a deep disconnection from the self, the regulating center of the psyche Jung described as the symbol of wholeness and inner harmony. When we cease external pursuit, we begin to look within. At that moment, the animus and anima, the unconscious masculine and feminine aspects we carry, begin their own integration process. The energy formerly projected onto others returns to us as presence, self-awareness, and personal power. This shifts our vibration from scarcity to abundance, from lack to completeness, and it is precisely this energetic and psychic transformation that elicits a different response from the outside world. It is not magic, it is synchronicity, another essential Jungian concept. The universe begins to respond to who we are, not to what we anxiously desire. Individuation makes us whole, and what is whole does not need to chase, it attracts. From our earliest years, our psyche is shaped by emotional bonds that define how we relate to the world. When those bonds are fragile, inconsistent, or marked by trauma and rejection, unconscious attachment patterns form and solidify over time. Jung did not use the contemporary term attachment directly, but he described ego formation as a process influenced by archetypal and symbolic experiences from childhood. It is in that symbolic space that the feeling of lack and the need for validation take root, later manifesting in the relentless pursuit of something outside ourselves. Our chase for love, success, recognition, or existential answers is often an expression of an ego disconnected from the self. In Jungian psychology, the self represents psychic totality, the unifying center of consciousness and the unconscious. When the ego drifts away from that center, it desperately seeks externally what should emerge from within. This dynamic is reinforced by performance-oriented, scarcity-driven culture, which teaches us to chase endlessly, as if happiness were an ever-distant finish line. The emptiness felt by those who are always chasing is not merely emotional, it is archetypal. It resides in the collective unconscious, where the hero myth lives. The hero must overcome 1,000 obstacles to achieve something external. Yet for Jung, the true hero is the one who dives into their own darkness, confronts their shadow, and returns transformed. Insisting on chasing something outside ourselves is, in truth, an unconscious refusal to face what is missing within. It is the ego's attempt to avoid confronting primordial pain, the sense that we are not enough as we are. When this realization becomes conscious, the illusion of the need to chase begins to dissolve. The individual sees that constant motion is not progress, but escape. The pursuit reveals itself as a sophisticated form of self-abandonment. And the more we abandon ourselves, the more we feel the world abandoning us. This vicious cycle creates a vibrational state of scarcity and despair that repels rather than attracts. Attachment, then, is a psychic bond to an ideal, a projection, or a lack not yet received internally. By becoming aware of this, the subject can begin a process of self-rescue. This requires an honest look at the motives driving their desires. Jung would say we need to ask, is this desire really mine or a compensation for something I refuse to face? As the pursuit energy begins to dissolve, something silent yet profound takes place. The body relaxes, the spirit hushes, and the energy field reorganizes. The absence of external movement allows a new internal center to be born. This change is not merely psychological, it is vibrational. The frequency that once emitted need now emits presence. And that presence creates a field of true attraction. Being present is the opposite of chasing. It is the state of someone who no longer seeks to be chosen because they have already chosen themselves. It is not indifference, but self-embrace. The person who stops chasing is not saying I don't want anymore, but rather I am enough. And that authentic energy is irresistibly attractive. The world responds to those who are whole, not to those in pieces seeking completion in another. Thus, by abandoning the posture of pursuit, we cease to be victims of our unconscious. We take a step toward individuation, and with it, activate a natural movement of the universe. What belongs to us finds us, because there is no longer noise, there is no longer hurry, there is only truth, and truth attracts. From the Jungian perspective, everything we deny in ourselves, out of shame, fear, or repression, casts itself into the shadow. Jung saw the shadow not merely as the bad or negative side of the individual, but as everything incompatible with the conscious image we construct of who we believe ourselves to be. The problem is that shadow content, despite lying outside conscious awareness, remains active and influential. It infiltrates our thoughts, emotions, and above all, our desires. When we feel we are always chasing something, a relationship, an achievement, approval, it is crucial to ask, what in me believes it needs this to feel complete? Often, that need arises from non-integrated parts of the psyche which, hidden in the shadow, operate silently. They drive us into an incessant search disguised as ambition or desire, but actually reveal old wounds not yet acknowledged. The unconscious, when ignored, finds symbolic ways to express itself. That is why we chase the love of someone who rejects us, the validation of an audience never satisfied, or victory in contexts that drain us. Every pursuit reveals a fragment of our shadow crying out for integration, and until we address those fragments, they will continue to move us like puppets of our own unconscious. Jung warns us that whatever we do not face within, we will encounter outside as fate. When we project shadow content, we place on others or on the world the responsibility to deliver something that is actually an exiled part of ourselves. That unattainable love we crave may represent our own repressed inner feminine. That figure of power we strive to impress may symbolize our archetypal father with whom we have never reconciled. Desire born of the shadow is contaminated by lack. It carries an impulse to correct, as if external achievement could heal inner pain. But it never does. That is why even when we obtain what we chase so fervently, we often feel an inexplicable void. It is the unconscious showing us that what we sought outside could never fill what was inside. True transformation happens when we begin to listen to the shadow's signals instead of fleeing from them. When we accept that there is something in us that feels lack, envy, anger, or fear without judgment, we set the integration process in motion. That acceptance reduces the drive to project, and the urgency to seek desperately outside begins to relent. Once integrated, the shadow ceases to manipulate our choices and desires silently. It becomes a creative potency, a source of vital energy. By confronting our unconscious impulses, we stop acting compulsively and start choosing consciously. This completely changes our vibrational field. We cease emitting scarcity and begin vibrating authenticity. And what is authentic attracts, not because it wants to be seen, but because it is true. External pursuit loses its force when the inner world is illuminated. The energy once spent chasing transforms into presence, and that presence is profoundly magnetic because it does not try, does not force, does not persuade. It simply is. The person who integrates their shadow does not become perfect, but whole. And what is whole naturally attracts what resonates with it. This is the point where energy stops pursuing and begins to be pursued. The previously fragmented unconscious now contributes to building a being who no longer needs to chase to exist. They are self-sufficient. And in that state, life begins to draw near, not as a race but as a synchronized dance between who we are and what we manifest. Within the structure of the human psyche, Jung identified two essential archetypal forces, animus and anima. The animus represents the masculine principle present in a woman's psyche, while the anima is the feminine principle present in a man's psyche. Both are unconscious aspects that, when unintegrated, project themselves onto our relationships, desires, and external pursuits. The disintegration of these principles creates an internal imbalance, propelling us outward in an unconscious attempt to find in another what we lack. When we are not in harmony with these aspects, we emit fragmented energy, and it is that fragmentation that fuels the urge to chase. External pursuit of love, security, recognition, or power often symbolizes an unconscious desire to reclaim a lost animus or anima within us. For instance, a man who constantly seeks idealized, seductive, mysterious women may actually be projecting an unrecognized anima. Likewise, a woman who feels the constant need for validation, to be chosen, or to prove herself through achievement may be operating from a distorted animus. Until these archetypes are acknowledged, they will continue to be sought externally, perpetuating the state of pursuit. However, integrating these principles brings about a deep, silent shift. The individual who makes peace with their inner feminine, receptive, intuitive, nurturing, learns to flow with life, to listen to its rhythm, to trust the timing of things. On the other hand, by integrating the inner masculine, active, structuring, purposeful, they develop focus, the ability to act with clarity, to set boundaries, and to manifest their will consciously. The union of these two poles not only restores internal balance but also transforms the vibration the person emits, and that vibration is, by its very nature, magnetic. Magnetism does not come from effort, but from inner harmony. When we are whole, there is no urgency, no anxiety, no need to prove anything. This completely alters how the world perceives us. People are drawn to someone at peace with themselves, someone who does not demand but offers presence. This presence is the direct result of animus-anima integration, where the feminine welcomes and the masculine sustains. There is no longer lack, only completeness. No more pursuit, only flow. Jung believed this integration was an essential step in individuation. He saw the human being as a potential totality, composed of opposites that must meet and dialogue. Masculine and feminine are not gender categories, but psychic forces we all carry, and whose balance determines the quality of our vital energy. Without this integration, energy tends to seek outside, as if searching for a lost half. With it, everything reorganizes and external movement ceases because the inner center has been found. When that center forms, true confidence is born, not the kind dependent on applause, reciprocation, or the presence of another, but a silent confidence that comes from knowing we are complete. This self-assurance creates a vibrational field that invites, attracts, envelops, without effort. People are drawn to this energy because it offers something rare, emotional stability and energetic authenticity. No promises, no games, just a presence that conveys safety and freedom. Thus, integrating the feminine and masculine is one of the deepest paths to end the need to chase, because nothing is missing. And when nothing is missing, there is no hurry. The other is no longer sought as salvation, but as a meeting. Opportunities are no longer hunted but welcomed. Life ceases to be a series of battles and becomes a space of resonance. In that space, everything that needs to come will come, not because it was pursued, but because it was attracted by the truth of who we are. Carl Jung introduced the concept of synchronicity to describe events that, though not linked by causality, share a meaningful connection. These happenings coincide symbolically, as if external reality were responding directly to the internal state of the psyche. Synchronicity is not magic, but an expression of the deep interconnection between the individual unconscious and the collective unconscious. When we stop chasing and begin aligning with our true selves, we create the space necessary for these meaningful coincidences to occur. The energy that once stirred in search of what was missing now organizes around what is true, and reality responds to that frequency. It is in this state of internal alignment that the world seems to start moving in our favor, not because we are forcing, insisting, or manipulating, but because we have stopped resisting. Synchronicity emerges as a reflection of a consciousness no longer fragmented but integrated. The self, the unifying center of the psyche, begins to act as an invisible compass, guiding us along paths that once seemed closed. This happens not through control, but through surrender. Surrender here is not passivity, but trust in the wisdom of the unconscious and the flow of life. When our inner energy is scattered, fragmented by unrecognized desires or unaddressed fears, the universe seems deaf. We try to make things happen by force, but everything demands excessive effort, constant struggle, and little reward. Conversely, when we align with who we truly are, when we accept the shadow, integrate our internal opposites, and cease the chase, we begin to vibrate at a frequency that activates synchronicities. The right people appear, doors open, situations fall into place, not because we were chasing, but because we started occupying our true place. This phenomenon may seem subtle, but it is powerful. Imagine someone who has always tried to please, to be chosen, to impress. Their life has been marked by frustrations, rejections, and a constant feeling of invisibility, until one day they decide to stop, not as an act of surrender but of awakening. They start to look within, to welcome their pain, to face their loneliness, to accept their imperfections. Gradually, their energy changes. They stop emitting vibrations of need and begin to emanate presence. At that moment, something curious happens. Without changing anything outside, everything around them begins to change. Synchronicity is that secret dance between our inner world and the outer world. It's as if the universe were just waiting for us to stop trying to control it before finally showing us it had been guiding us all along. But that guidance cannot be perceived by someone in a state of desperation. An anxious mind, always chasing, cannot hear intuition. We must quiet down, we must trust. And that trust only arises when our energy returns to center. In Jung's view, the unconscious is not merely a depot of traumas and repressed impulses. It is also a reservoir of deep wisdom. When we live in harmony with its contents, we develop a symbolic intelligence that recognizes life's signs, decodes symbols in events, and understands that every encounter, every delay, every coincidence carries a message. Synchronicity thus becomes the universe's language when we are on our path. Being aligned with our true selves is, therefore, the greatest power of attraction we can develop, and this alignment is only possible when we cease the chase. The person who no longer chases is in a state of listening. They allow life to reveal itself, the invisible to manifest, the unexpected to find them. They do not demand, but accept. They do not force, but trust. And it is precisely for that reason that everything begins to come to them, not as a reward, but as a natural consequence of their vibration. True manifestation is not born of desire, but of coherence between who we are inside and what we express outside. When there is coherence, there is a magnetic field, and within that field, synchronicity operates silently and precisely, conspiring in favor of what is true. It is this state that transforms life into flow and reality into a mirror. There is a silent point where the soul stops running. In that moment, there is no more urgency, no more struggle, only presence, and it is in that presence that the world begins to respond differently. Carl Jung's deep psychology shows us that what we project, we pursue, and what we integrate, we attract. When we cease the external search and dive into the individuation process, facing the shadow, balancing internal opposites, acknowledging unconscious desires, our energy reorganizes. What was fragmented becomes cohesive. What was lack transforms into silent strength. By aligning with who we truly are, we stop emitting frequencies of need and begin to vibrate truth. And it is that truth that moves the world around us, not as a forced reaction, but as living synchronicity. Life begins to find us because we finally found ourselves first. If this journey resonated with you, subscribe to the channel now and hit the bell so you won't miss the next videos. And if you feel it's time to stop chasing and start attracting, click on the video appearing on the screen. It will deepen this path of inner transformation even further. Your presence is your power. Honor it.